Hi everyone, and welcome to Press X, the Geek Show's dedicated video games thing. We do video games. So, my name is Rob, and joining me today are Rob.
Hello.
Yes, he's a different Rob. It's not me, with a strange accent. And also Andy, as always.
Yes. Hello.
Yes. We were going to do merchandise this week, but we're missing Mark, and Mark knows a lot about merchandise, so we're going to leave that to one side, and we're going to do something else this week, and when Mark comes back, we may do merchandise again. So, anyway, take it away, Rob. What have you been playing?
Death's Gambit. I know a lot of people will be saying, what now?
Isn't that the one by Adult Swim?
Adult Swim, who is better known for Metalocalypse, which I love. I'm not going to acknowledge the other one because its fandom is horrible. Just Metalocalypse and Robot Chicken. That's all it's known for. Nothing else. Nothing else.
Robot Chicken. Robot Chicken is amazing.
But yeah, they do like other things outside of like the TV channel. They've also got a record that they put out, like a compilation that they put out once a year. Which is always very good and features a lot of the music that they put out through the year. And they also started doing games, like indie games. This is one of them, Death's Gambit, and the only way to describe it would be to call it 8-bit art. Is that the name for it?
8-bit art?
No, that's like 8-bit graphics. It's not. There's a specific term that I'm trying to think of, but it just completely escaped me.
Pixel art.
Pixel art. That's the fella. It's like a pixel art Dark Souls.
Really?
Yeah. You are a wanderer who's basically been picked. Death basically takes pity on you, and he says, "Go home." And you've got to go through like this war zone. Not war zone, sort of guns. War zone is sort of pretty much the same sort of time frame that Dark Souls is talking about.
Medieval,
medievalish sort of time. And you have like about 7 or 8 different classes. They all have like different weapons. You have like secondary weapons. You pick up weapons and armor throughout the game. So it's very RPG-ish. But it's like you got a horse. You run from left to right of the screen. That's like the way the game progresses. But there's backtracking like Castlevania. It's very well put together. But I think it's just one of these things that who was it for? I feel because. If you want to play Dark Souls, you play Dark Souls. If you want to play 2D Dark Souls, there's like Sultan's Sanctuary, there's all sorts of other ones that are coming out. So it's just one of these types of game that's really crammed. And my problem with it, I don't know if you played any like Dark Souls style games, but you have like stamina, don't you?
Yeah.
And you feel like a victim of the stamina because you have to sort of evade the monsters, evade the bad guys, but sometimes you don't really have enough stamina to do that. You level up, and you've literally got to spend everything on your stamina to spend the chance. But I'm not very good at these games, so I just keep on doing the same one area over and over and over. I know that's kind of the point, but I don't know. I like games that are hard, not because you're so horribly outmanned. I like games that are hard, like Ninja Gaiden. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, take Dragon's Dogma as an example, right? I'm choosing that because you mentioned Dark Souls, and Dark Souls being a fantasy RPG, medievalish type thing. And if I was going to equate anything to it, I'd say Dragon's Dogma, something like that, where there was actually a challenge to the game. It wasn't a straightforward, you get way, way overpowered very, very quickly and you can beat things straight away. You still had an element of challenge in Dragon's Dogma, but it was a much gentler increase than it is in Dark Souls, where it just kind of dropped. Well, not even Dark Souls. In Dark Souls, compared to Demon Souls, is a walk in the park.
Yeah, I played Demon Souls first. I imported it. It's the only game I've ever imported. Really enjoyed it,
Yeah, Demon Souls is a great game. It's broken as hell.
Oh yeah,
it's
but
still
that's
a crap
kind
game.
of like that was the way for Japanese RPGs, which went sort of massive studio one games back then. Like all the Shin Megami Tensei games before Persona happened were kind of broken ass games.
Yeah, I know. Well, they are re-releasing a bunch of them. I don't know why.
We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Death's Gambit, I can see who like it. I'll see what type of game it is, like Dark Souls 2D, Castlevania, but it's just I prefer a different style of hard game, so this just really didn't connect with me in any way. A lot do like this sort of wry sense of humour about it. But yeah, that's Gambit. I played that on PS4 as well.
Yeah. What about you, Andy? What you been playing?
Well, I'm not going to talk about my countless hours spent on sports games, because they're all samey. But we're going back in time for mine. Not literally, but in the game. I've been playing Far Cry Primal. This is the one. I went through years and years without playing any Far Cry games, and then last year I had a few days off, so I played through Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4, and then Far Cry 5. So I'm really like all these guns and all these helicopters, and then I get told, you should try Far Cry Primal. So I tried Far Cry Primal, and there's no guns, no helicopters, no anything.
Which one's Far Cry Primal? Is that the first one? Or the second one?
No, that's the one in the Stone Age, isn't it? Where you have to like.
It's the one before last, in the middle of 4 and 5. Minus 50,000. It's 50,000 BCE, and you're basically like Stone Age caveman type from a tribe, and you meet this other tribe, and then the first mission is hunting for food after you get ravaged by a saber-toothed tiger, which they're quite scary actually.
I expect so.
But I like it, but it doesn't have the bang bang the other ones had.
The what?
The bang bang. No, it's Far Cry but with no bang bang.
You should do the poster quotes.
That is just amazing.
It's good.
It's Far Cry, but without the bang bang and but with more fluff fluff.
Yeah. And
describe everything by onomatopoeia.
Although, for some reason, you already know how to make loads of bow and arrows.
Well, I imagine they did at that time. I don't know. That was proof, but if they're going to do anything, it's that throwing sticks and that.
Yeah, but put it like this, Rob, right? Which one's the easy? Well, you start off when you make a bow and arrow, but you have to level up to be able to make a club.
That makes no sense. You just pick up a stick. You just pick up a stick, don't you? It says you were not high enough level to pick up this stick.
But anyway, Far Cry Primal. If you like Far Cry, but you don't mind losing everything that Far Cry offered, pick up this game.
Yeah, it was kind of a hit. It didn't really set anybody on fire, so to speak, did it?
Yeah.
It was kind of just forgotten about. The thing about Far Cry is your first one's your favourite always in that series because it just becomes so repetitive and samey. I played like number 2 before it had all the sort of Ubisoft bits in. What was your first?
Well, mine was 3, but I enjoyed 4 better, and I thought 5 was amazing.
I haven't played 5 yet. But 2 was the one where your character has, I can't remember, you have some sort of disease where you've got to basically take an injection every now and again.
Oh.
To keep you up and active, and because you can't just run instantly, like forever, like you can in a lot of games. Your character's kind of got like an illness that prevents that, so it makes it a bit more real, I thought, that one.
Very unique games.
Yeah, well, they were. They're just kind of ubiquitous and the same now.
Oh, well. So, Rob, what have you been playing?
Me? I have actually been playing a sports game. I've been playing F1 2018.
Ooh.
Yes.
Shouldn't it be 2019? Isn't that a year old?
No, because it's 2018 and the race season, we're in the middle of the racing season, aren't we?
Oh, no, it's just when you're titling sports games, it's always the year ahead, isn't it? That's all.
No, with the F1 games, it's always the current year, because when the F1 games come out, it's usually in the middle of the year, and the racing season is half over.
Yeah.
Makes sense then, I guess.
With other sports, generally, what you find is that they'll have like a summer break or something like that.
That's true.
But the F1 season runs over the summer, so... But yeah, I've really, really been enjoying it. But then again, I do like my racing games, but this is a well-established thing. It's very similar to the previous F1 games in that you start off by picking a team from the grid, you complete your practice sessions, your test sessions, You unlock points to upgrade your car. You get rivalry points during races. You basically work your way through to get to the championship. There's a couple of interesting changes, though. The first one is that there's a lot more customization this year than there was in the previous game, right? In F1 2017, there's a lot more customization. There are loads more options. There are lots of more things that you can basically do, and it feels a lot more technical. I've always defined this as a technical racer rather than an arcade racer because of all of these things that you can do. Another big change is that they've added a track that's been missing for a bit. Hockenheim is in, and I love that circuit. It's a real challenge, Hockenheim, especially if you basically ditch things like ABS, you ditch the yellow guideline, and you ditch things like traction control, stuff like that, and you basically try and make it the rawest driving experience possible.
Which isn't true of Formula 1, though, is it? Let's be fair.
Yeah, it's not true of Formula 1. I usually have it on a reasonably difficult setting, but I thought I'll challenge myself a little bit this time, right? And I went on the next hardest setting, which was like full professional almost. And I say almost because it's a racing game. It's not going to be, I'm not a professional driver. But I found that by doing that, what was weird was that when I went to a much more difficult setting, I found that things like the traction control and stuff like that was actually more restrictive on the harder settings, which, because I've always played it on a certain difficulty level, I've never really experienced that in the past because it's always been kind of balanced. But with the harder difficulty, I was having to brake later into corners. I was having to increase my straight line speed. I was having to do things that I wouldn't normally have done in a race. And because of those, things like traction control, things like ABS, they become restrictive. And I found that a weird sensation, and that's something that surprised me because that to me means that you should turn those off and basically rely on your skill to play the game. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then it gives the game a totally different feeling when you turn those off. It's a lot more physical. I played this over at my friend's house, and he's got like the full racing rig. And he was surprised when I turned all of the assists off. I said, I want to try this just in its rawest form. And I did just a 10-lap race. By the end of it, I was sweating buckets because it was that physical. I wasn't experiencing any G-force or anything like that, but just the sheer tension, the amount of concentration I was having to put into the game just to try and get around the circuit in one piece without actually going off and hitting a wall or something like that. Mm. It was intense, but it was great. I actually managed to finish the race. No, I didn't win. No way did I win. I was just happy. I actually felt a sense of accomplishment that I actually finished that race. Mm. That I haven't felt in a game for a long time.
I guess you really are a big fan of F1.
I love the games. I think the F1 games are some of the most brilliant racing games around. There are a couple of niggly little bits. They've got these media interviews in the pit, and they just feel like they've been tacked on at the end. They feel a bit like Cyborg in the Justice League movie. But yeah, those of you who listen to 4Panel will know what that joke means. But yeah, that F1 2018, it's a cracking game. And if you got a racing setup, then I would advise you to just give it a try on a higher difficulty with all the assists turned off, because it is intense, and I loved it.
I go around the corners in racing games and I bash into the other competitors as a cushion, as a barrier.
Yeah.
These games are not for me.
Exactly. But one more difference, though, Rob. The difference between you and me is I miss the cars at the barrier.
I miss the cars at the barrier, normally because they're so far ahead of me.
And underneath that line that tells you when to brake.
See, this is the thing. Without that line, you have to gauge it. You have to use your eyes, and it's really tough when you only have to rely on visual cues and audio cues and just basically how fast you're going. You have to take in so much information, and I have so much more respect for racing drivers, especially F1 drivers, after trying this without any assists.
I can't wait for you to try a VR version when they inevitably make one.
Oh, God. Let's put it this way. Part of me is really excited at the prospect of a VR F1 game. but there's also another part of me that's absolutely bricking it. So yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Right. On with the show then, I guess.
Yes.
This is inspired from like a number of directions. I want to talk today about just sort of franchises being brought back from the past, brought back from near death. There's like a few instances that really brought this attention for me. I know a lot of people say there's less and less games with this generation and more remasters and whatnot. But it was Medieval that was announced. I think it was last E3.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was the remaster of Resident Evil 2. There's this new Tomb Raider trilogy.
Yeah.
And the Onimusha trailer that they've relaunched quite recently. That's coming out on PSN in the new year.
Yeah.
And it's a weird time, isn't it? I mean, let's be fair. There's been no other point in games history where it's been so focused on the past. There's more old games that you can get than new ones. Let's be fair.
Part of me agrees with you, Rob, but part of me is going, is it me finally realising I'm getting a bit old because the done it years ago and we haven't realised, for example, Frogger.
Remakes aren't a new thing. It's just right now we've been almost inundated with remakes. Not just remakes, reboots as well. Because
yeah, that was the Tomb Raider, wasn't it? Tomb Raider was a reboot.
Yeah, Tomb Raider was a reboot, but Resident Evil 2 is a remake, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah. Well, they're saying it's a remake, but they're doing it in a way where people who've played the games, the original Resident Evil 2, a lot like me, won't know this is where that thing's supposed to be. Yeah. So, like, you walk around a certain corridor in Resident Evil 2, the original one, and the licker, you just missed him. He just crawled out of you.
Yeah.
That's not happening here. They've remixed it.
Yeah.
A remix. I like that word.
Yeah. Did you play the original Resident Evil remake?
Yes.
I did, but then I didn't realise in the option it was new gameplay. I tried it on old gameplay, and those old games did not handle well.
No, they didn't. They didn't, and also playing the remake of Resident Evil with the old gameplay is suicide because those zombies can run.
Yeah, I got all about. I didn't even get to the Jill sandwich scene. You know.
That's my point. You need to play the Resident Evil remake with the new gameplay. Otherwise, you're just basically walking into zombies and just going, "Eat me!"
That was definitely a reboot, because if they'd have kept the old dialogue, that'd have been amazing. But
no, I think that's just kind of. People will say, it's a bad thing. I can understand that. I do wish there was more new games coming out, but.
The thing is, how
it just isn't. But on the same front, what I really like about it is, it's those games where sort of, I'd say that not games per se, but modern 3D games. That was their era of infancy.
Yeah, but
so they had like great ideas and all that, but they didn't know how to do it properly. And now they do know how to do it properly. So going back and making them as good as they possibly can be with modern standards, that's something that I like,
I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing. The thing that I am going to say, though, is there are only a certain number of ways that you can make a game, right? Mark recently reviewed Freedom Planet, right?
Yeah.
Freedom Planet is effectively a game of Sonic the Hedgehog, but done the way Sonic the Hedgehog should have been done from the start. That's his conclusion. But it is literally just Sonic the Hedgehog. I've seen the gameplay. I've watched his video of it. It is literally just Sonic the Hedgehog. And that's my point. It's like the Dark Souls game, the pixel art Dark Souls game you were talking about. It's basically Dark Souls with pixel art, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And that's what I'm saying. There are only a certain number of ways you can make a game. Neo, we thought, was Onimusha when it was first advertised, when we saw the first trailer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more Onimusha in that than there is Dark Souls, let's be fair.
Yeah, it's a lot more Onimusha than Dark Souls. And people saying that it's Dark Souls, obviously you've never played Onimusha.
No, but that's the thing on the comment threads for these trailer for Onimusha. Everybody was going on about it was my favourite game when I was a kid. No, it wasn't. Otherwise, it wouldn't have failed so bad and been, killed as a franchise. I played every single one.
No.
Even the Power Stone one. I even played that.
Oh, Onimusha Blade Warriors. I've got that. The thing about Onimusha, it was fine. Onimusha 3 was a cracking game. I mean,
that was the one with Jean Reno in, wasn't it?
With Jean Reno, yeah. They could even afford Jean Reno to actually be in the game. This was when Jean Reno was a very popular actor, before Godzilla, I think it was.
I think it was after.
Was it after? Oh, maybe maybe it was when he was just kind of recovering from Godzilla then, and the damage Godzilla did to his career. But, what was it? The one that kind of put a scupper on things was Dawn of Dreams.
What's that?
Onimusha 4.
Can't even remember that one.
That tells you how many people actually remember there was a fourth Onimusha game. Onimusha Dawn of Dreams was not a good game.
Was that the co-op one? Was there a co-op one? I feel like it was a co-op one.
Does that go down in history with the Golden Axe remake?
No, the Golden Axe remake was truly atrocious.
But it's not important. But I'm just glad that Onimusha is getting recognised again, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's another side of this remaster stuff.
But the thing is, more often than not, you're going to have a bad remake. You've mentioned the Golden Axe remake. I will see you and raise you a Bomberman.
What, the Xbox one?
Yes.
Where it tried to make it all moody and
they gave him spiky armour.
Yeah. Bomberman, a game in which you'll play an adorable headed little bomber who tries to blow up his mates in a little maze.
Family fun.
Well, it was. Yeah. It's a very, when you break it down to a concept, it's quite dark, but it is just family fun. But it's not everything sort of repackaged. There are the repackaged games, the games that sort of they go back to sort of what it was and fix it. Like Spyro's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, but
it was that Ratchet and Clank that came out on PS4 in line with the maligned movie.
Yeah, but my big problem with those is, the Spyro one I am hesitant about, and the reason why is because I played the Crash Bandicoot remake.
I'll be honest, I didn't like Crash Bandicoot as a kid, and I didn't like Spyro as a kid.
I loved them both. I thought they were amazing games. I like the way they keep everything level design wise the exact same as well, so that is really a remaster.
It's not, it's a remake because they kept the level design, but they recoded it from scratch, so it's...
And also, if you go back and play the original ones, all of the dragons are basically the same, but if you go and play the new one, they're all very unique identities.
Yeah.
Sorry. They've expanded upon what was there.
Yeah.
Which is the right way to do it.
Yeah,
the one that bugs me, I'll be honest, the style of this remake that bugs me is not many. PlayStation 3 wasn't as successful as the PlayStation 4.
No.
So let's put the PlayStation 3 games remastered on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I don't like that.
It's fair enough with The Last of Us, but the one that really bugged me was Sleeping Dogs. Why the hell did that happen?
Sleeping Dogs wasn't really that much of a success anyway. It didn't really sell particularly brilliantly. It didn't do bad, but it didn't do good either.
I mean, I enjoyed it, but I'm never compelled to play it ever again.
Yeah. It's a lot, though, with any recent remake. You know what I mean? Like Modern Warfare, for example. That is just an obvious cash grab.
Yeah, especially when, unusual Game of the Year editions, they have, all of it unlocked. Completely. Borderlands Game of the Year was like that as well. It didn't have everything on that, but in the Modern Warfare, you had to actually pay for the DLC that should be on the game anyway.
Was that Modern Warfare Remastered that you're talking about?
Yeah. And at a premium rate as well. Not like a few quid here or there, like a premium rate DLC for stuff that should have been on the game anyway.
Eventually, when they stopped selling it with the game, like with the other one, the one nobody wanted.
Yeah.
But anyway, we won't hate on Call of Duty too much because we'll incite the wrath of every 13-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, you played the original back in whatever it was. When Call of Duty wasn't like this behemoth of the game industry. That one was a great game.
And Big Red one as well.
Yeah.
And it became the behemoth of the industry, and people are just like, I don't care anymore.
The ones that I kind of don't really understand that much. I can understand, say, PS3 to PS4, right? And some of the ones on the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2 I can understand. Remake them for the PS4. Yeah?
While you're on this, can I just say, what really bugs me is the fact that they've got PlayStation 1 classics on the PSN store, but they don't let you play them on your PS4. Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I bought loads on the PS3. And same account, you just can't copy them over.
Yeah. We'll cover that some other time, but when they're doing remakes, right, and you got the Final Fantasy remake has been announced, Final Fantasy VII, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
And so we know that they're going to do a complete rebuild from the ground up, better graphics, better controls, better everything, yeah? They're going
Well, they have to, because going back, Final Fantasy VII is a bit of a mess. Nostalgia is fine for the hardcore, but for everybody else, they'd be like, this is just stupid and a mess.
Yeah, but, I mean, I hate the materia system. Throwing it out there, all you Final Fantasy VII fans can go suck an egg. The materia system sucks. All right,
I preferred 8.
Yeah, 8 had it.
I was going to say Final Fantasy 9 was so much better.
I think 10 had the best system. The Sphere Grid was a good system. Okay,
we all have our favourite. I like 8. Andy likes 9. Rob likes 10.
No, I'm saying I actually like 8, 9, and 10. I thought they all had interesting approaches. It's just the materia system in 7 was overly cumbersome. It was tedious. I still don't know what the hell I was doing, right?
Anyway, you were saying.
Anyway, what I was saying was, I can understand remaking some games from the PlayStation 1 or the PlayStation 2. What I don't understand is remastering games from the PlayStation 2 onto the PlayStation 3 or the PlayStation 4.
You're going to have to build on that.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, yeah, I don't get that one either. This is an unpopular opinion right here. Right. I don't think Shadow of the Colossus is a very good game.
When it came out, it was a cracking game, yeah? We hadn't
even then, I didn't think it was very good.
For me, it was a cracking game because I hadn't really seen any game like it. And it was, I liked the whole point of the game. I liked the idea of the game. But it hasn't aged well. And so when I found out there was a remaster of it on the PlayStation 3, I was thinking, well, why? Why would you want a remaster of this game? That to me is just milking the cow that's already gone dry. All you're getting is moo.
All you're getting is sore teats.
I don't know what you're doing if you are when you're playing Shadow of the Colossus, though.
It gets worse. There are games that haven't been around for decades that were getting remastered, remade. Some of these games people haven't heard of.
Syndicate was the big one, wasn't it?
Syndicate was the big one.
Oh, that caused fuss.
Oh, that one did cause fuss, because Syndicate was a cracking game on the Commodore Amiga and the Atari ST. I absolutely loved that game. And for the rest of my life, I will never forget when you got a certain weapon that could just tear through all of the enemies. When you chose it, all it said was minigun. And that was it. And that stuck with me ever since that game. And every so often, at some point during the year, I will just, for no reason at all, just say minigun. And that's it.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, we have games from the Commodore Amiga. I mean, are we going to go back to the ZX Spectrum and have, I don't know, Manic Miner or something like that?
I'm not X-Men. Not X-Men. X-Men's a different thing altogether. XCOM. XCOM was a remake, wasn't it?
Well, the original XCOM was, I think on the PC or something like that, or the Commodore Amiga. And then they had the PlayStation version, which was a really good game. Terror from the Deep and Enemy Unknown. The XCOM franchise is one where they've done it right. They did the reboot absolutely bang on correct.
Well, they've approached it as if it was a new game.
Yeah, and they built it from the ground up. They basically kept just the bare bones. They kept the base concept of the game, and then just rebuilt the entire thing, keeping the base concept. That's it.
So, right. I've got to ask you, Andy. The new Tomb Raider is coming out. Shadow of something. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
You think this is a cracking series?
Yeah, well...
I think just tell me on it, really, because...
I
think Tomb Raider was ground into the earth, and it was just worth nothing whatsoever by the end, so...
Can I say, when you say Tomb Raider is a cracking series, I do mean the recent reboots.
Oh, no, because what was it, about 7 of the original games?
Has been rebooted, is it 3 times? Started with Angel of Darkness, we know how that turned out.
Well, Angel of Darkness wasn't really a reboot. It had elements of a prequel and a follow-on, and it didn't actually know what it was trying to be.
And then you had the Legend That was the main reboot.
Tomb Raider Legend was the main reboot, yeah.
But I wasn't too much of a fan of those. I thought it got too action related, and it's ironic because it rebooted with Tomb Raider 5 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah.
And I thought it was brilliant. It was a totally different game. It was a survival game, basically.
It was. I had one big gripe with the Tomb Raider reboot, the modern Tomb Raider reboot. It's Crystal Dynamics, wasn't it, who did that?
Yeah. Mm.
I had one big gripe with it. That was just how quickly Lara Croft got over killing her first person.
Same, exactly same. It was hesitant, and then
all the way up to killing her first person, and just immediately after when she starts throwing up and everything like that. That's totally understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, but now Renji's wearing like a necklace of a victim's fingers.
Yeah, I'm glad you went with fingers and not what another writer wrote.
I'm trying to keep it clean.
Toes.
He went with something else beginning with F. But yeah, all of a sudden she's like this battle-hardened warrior who's tearing through the island, killing everything that gets in her way.
Beyond that, though, let's get that out of the way. Beyond that,
yeah.
Mm.
What have they done here in this new one? Because it just looks like Uncharted. I'll be honest.
It's content. It is basically. I played this before I played any of the Uncharted's, the recent Tomb Raiders.
Because the irony there, just before you go, the irony there is Uncharted was supposed to be like a male lead for like a potential Tomb Raider sequel, but that never happened.
Yeah,
I mean it does. I mean you've even got the wall climbing techniques with the. Is it like the hook pitchfork type of thing?
Yeah, you climb the wall with a pitchfork, Andy.
Yeah. You've got... well, you know what I mean. It's like a hook thing. And...
At the top of the hill's Frankenstein, and they're going to chase him off.
Could be worse. I could have said a scythe. But,
yeah, that's true.
Uncharted 2 started with that. And... obviously, this must have been heavily influenced by Uncharted, but I thought it worked. I thought it was brilliant.
That's weird, that isn't it? How they can that cycle of influencing each other.
Mm. But yeah, I just think it's the really fun games. This new one seems to go off in the Tomb Raider direction, but it's a set trilogy that they've planned out. So it's going to end. So I'm looking forward to it. Might not be a day one buy for me because it is about just a month away, and there's so many coming out. But still, it's a really good. If you haven't played and finished the first one, it's only a few pounds. Pick it up. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
Do you know what surprised me with the remakes was exactly what is a remake. What games are actually remakes of older games? Because it's surprising. You remember Phoenix Wright?
Yeah.
Phoenix Wright is actually a remake of a Game Boy Advance game. Those lovely Phoenix Wright games on the Nintendo DS where they go objection, they're actually remakes.
Can't say I'm surprised.
The thing is, I look at Nintendo's body of work, especially titles like Mario, and every Mario game is a remake of an older Mario game.
I don't know about this new one. This new one seems pretty wacky to be a remake of anything.
Yeah, they've put a lot more creativity into it. But there's nobody who can tell me that if you sit down and play one Super Smash Brothers, you've played them all.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
That's true.
You know, if you sit down and play one Mario Kart, you've played them all. Nobody can tell me that isn't the truth.
And just be fair as well, if you play the new Smash Brothers, you don't have to play any of the other ones because every single character that's ever been in them is in it.
Yeah.
Not picking on Nintendo and saying that. There's other franchises from other companies that are largely the same too, but...
As much as I love them, they are very, very guilty of making the same game over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
I mean, Dynasty Warriors.
Yes.
Is it 74 it's on now?
Well... Let's see. If you take into account Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, Warriors Orochi, all of the third-party Warriors games like Hyrule Warriors and Pirate Warriors, of which there were 3 wasn't there?
Yeah.
And various things like that, and Muso Stars, and all of the other crossover games that they did in the Warriors franchise, as well as the main Dynasty Warriors games, because they had Dynasty Warriors and then Dynasty Warriors Empires as well.
Mm.
And you take all of those, and it might come to 74. We don't know.
Just the next one, Dynasty Warriors Empires Free Turbo Remix Edition.
It won't be far off 74, I'll be honest.
And that, to me, is an example of a company that has basically found a formula that people love and stuck to it for all these years until Dynasty Warriors 9, where they made some changes and everyone spat their dummy out.
I won't be that simplistic about it, but yeah, okay.
I will be simplistic because I played Dynasty Warriors 9 and I actually quite enjoyed it.
Okay.
It gives me a horse. I like riding horses in games.
I've got a question for you all here.
Yes?
I know everything seems to have been remade, but that's obviously not the case. It's a 3 each. You know, because I can't ask you to pick one out of the entire history of games to be remade, because that's just, it's too hard to pick just one, isn't it?
Mm.
So, yeah. Should I go first, just to get the ball rolling?
Yeah. Yeah.
First one's an EA game, which didn't really do that well, but it was one of those ideas that had a lot of potential, I think, and it was called Freedom Fighters. It was like a squad-based third-person perspective shooter.
I think I recall that.
It was on a PlayStation 2. It was very good, but it could have done with a little bit more nuance to make it the game that it could have been, you know. And I think a remake or something like that could really go well for it.
Mm.
Second one is an obvious one. Well, obvious for people of a certain generation, anyway. My generation.
Yeah.
Talk about my generation, yeah.
It's probably the same as my generation.
My Sharona, yeah. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. But,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver.
Oh, I love that game.
Actually, do you know, I'd love to see a complete reboot of the entirety of Legacy of Kain.
Oh, you could. But it can't play it again now because it's just horribly dated. Horribly
That's
dated.
why I said a complete reboot starting from the first game, Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen. I'd love to see a modern take on Blood Omen and then going into Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver's a cracking game.
Because Darksiders proved they could work.
Yeah. So,
Can I say as well?
Yeah.
To add a positivity, even more strength to your argument. I had Soul Reaver on Steam. Still do. But my computer's too good to run it.
Your computer's an elitist, Andy.
So it's like, yeah, make another one, please.
And the third one, not so much a remake or a remaster, just brought back from the death, which is one of the concepts that inspired this show as well. But Codemasters used to do a football manager game on the consoles called LMA Manager.
Oh, yes.
Bring it back.
That is a really good choice.
Yeah, I nearly failed my GCSEs because of that game.
Yeah, I had a lot of hours in that game. I loved it a lot.
Mm. Imagine how fast it'd run through as well now. You don't have to wait half an hour between every match.
Yeah. So, who's next? Who's got 3 to pluck out?
I've got 3.
Okay.
Well, my first one is everybody knows how much of a fan I am of the Metal Gear series.
Mm.
And this is probably never going to happen because of the Konami and Kojima spat. But the original Metal Gear, not Metal Gear Solid, the original Metal Gear, I'd love to see a remake.
So before it was Metal Gear Solid?
Yeah, the original one.
Yeah. I've got the Legacy Collection. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because if you go back and play it,
yeah,
it's not something you're going to sit through, is it?
No.
But yeah, that's my first one. Second one.
On that point, I'd love to see them put out Metal Gear Solid 3 again, because that is the best one.
Mm.
Just with the new engine, put that out.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to. I think somebody did, you can look it up on YouTube, actually. They did a Metal Gear Solid 3 as it would be on the Fox engine.
Oh, nice.
And you could tell, obviously, it's fan-made, and he's took resources from wherever, but looks amazing.
I imagine, yeah.
But Yeah, Metal Gear. That's my first one. Second one, I think this could be a high possibility because we've seen Resident Evil 2 remade.
Okay.
I know you're probably trying to guess, or you're going to say Resident Evil 3, or you're going to say, well, something else.
Silent Hill 2?
No, I want to see a new Silent Hill, but Silent Hill's already basically HD remastered.
Well, it's dead, isn't it?
Yeah.
They could bring it back happily, I think, Konami.
But that's not the one I'm going for.
Well,
go on.
I'm going for Dino Crisis.
Oh,
really?
Yes. I actually agree with you, Andy. Aside from Dino Crisis 3, the first two Dino Crisis games were cracking games.
There's no Dino Crisis 3.
I never liked them, I'll be honest.
I thought it was unique. I thought it was the first one in particular. The second one was more action-y, science fiction-y. But the first one, I'd love to just see a remake. It'd be brilliant to play through it again.
Yeah.
Now, if you said Dead Space, you'd be on my jam. But Dino Crisis, I didn't get on with it, I'll be honest.
Oh, I loved it. And I still remember the password to get into the office was head.
You played it too much, Andy.
No, but I can easily remember that because it was called head because you'd walk in, the T-Rex head will go through the door. Well, the window.
Yeah.
But
and the fourth one, Time Splitters. Damn.
Hey, we're seeing new Streets of Rage as well next year.
Yeah, gives a chance for anything, really, isn't there?
But that's not my next one. Rob will agree with me on this one as well.
Which Rob?
You, Rob. Right. I've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
So long, time has passed, and I'm still disappointed it hasn't happened. Please, please, please make a new, rebooted Jade Cocoon game.
Yes! Oh, God, yes!
Please, please.
Right.
House of the Dead, Time Crisis. Oh, no.
No, because they had House of the Dead on the Wii U, and it was actually a pretty good game.
Hey, they had
yes, more of it.
I would love to see a new Jade Cocoon game, because of all of the kind of monster fighting each other games, there's only Jade Cocoon and possibly Monster Rancher that could give Pokemon a run for its money. But Jade Cocoon, definitely. If I had to choose between playing a Pokemon game and playing Jade Cocoon, I would choose Jade Cocoon over and over again, because it's so much better than Pokemon.
It was basically...
Ranchers had too much sugar in them.
It gets very, very depressing as you play through it, but that's a part of its charm.
Well, the thing is, it was one of the few games that acknowledged you were basically capturing creatures and forcing them to fight each other. Right?
And then doing scientific, spells to merge them together. And
basically, there was an inhumanity to it, and the game actually acknowledged the fact that these things were kind of inhumane. Whereas Pokemon is all sweetness and light, and look at us, we're encouraging animal abuse and slavery. We're basically promoting cockfighting.
Yeah,
Pokemon Bingo.
They have addressed that though. Remember, in the new, which is also a remake.
We are not calling this episode Pokemon Dingo.
In the new Pokemon game that's coming out on Switch, remember?
Yeah, I know.
You're not allowed to fight wild Pokemon anymore. You're only allowed to battle other people's Pokemon. You just have to throw Pokeballs at them now. Over and over.
You have to throw your Pokeballs at them, do you?
Mm-hmm.
You've got one more, don't you, Andy?
No, I've said 3.
Have you said 3?
Yeah, it was Metal Gear.
Yeah.
Dino Crisis and Jade Cocoon.
Yeah.
That's a good choice, actually.
That
and
is...
I imagine Rob's going to say Siphon Filter. I'm just going to preempt him.
Siphon Filter Dark Mirror was a really good game. I don't want to see a reboot of Siphon Filter. I want to see a continuation.
You know? I know what you're going to say, though, Rob.
What?
You're going to say Croc, aren't you?
No. Because I thought Croc was a Croc.
What about Bubsy?
No, not Bubsy either. Do not even talk to me. I'll be honest, the first game, when we talk about reboots, I would love to see a reboot of this, a complete rebuild, in the same way they do in the Final Fantasy VII remake, right? I would love to see this game on modern consoles with better graphics, because if I had to choose between playing Final Fantasy VII and this game would win, hands down.
Ooh, Dark
Easy.
Chronicle.
No. It's a PlayStation 1 game. So
Dark Cloud?
Nope. PlayStation 1.
Oh, you have to put me out of my misery here.
Chrono Trigger.
No. The Legend of Dragoon.
Nobody played that though, really, did they?
Well, the thing is, it didn't really sell well in the West because nobody really understood what it was, but everybody who's played it since has said, why didn't this game actually do any better? Why wasn't it promoted better? This is such a good game. And I would love to see a modern take on The Legend of Dragoon because...
Is that the Sega Saturn one where you're flying
No, that's Panzer Dragoon.
Ah, too many Dragoons.
Yeah. The Legend of Dragoon is a really good JRPG. It's by Sony Computer Entertainment, Japan, and it was out on the PS1, so Sony could basically put it into development for the PS4. I reckon it'd do really well.
Yeah.
Another game that I would love to see a remake of. This is going back a long time. It's another RPG game, but this is back to 1984, right?
Well, it's going back.
Yeah, it is. But this thing is, this is such a cracking game, and I'd love for them to take like the base concept and the base storyline idea, and basically work their magic on it. Because this is the game.
New Zealand story.
Hey,
New Zealand story.
No, this is the game that basically popularized the whole idea of isometric graphics. It's called Night Law, and it was such a revelation. I mean, this was a ZX Spectrum game.
Oh,
right.
It shows your age, that, Rob.
Yeah, but the thing is, I remember the first time I played this, and I was going, how do they do this? It's on a cassette. How did they make this? What kind of sorcery is this? Now, can you imagine playing an isometric game, an isometric RPG, on the ZX Spectrum?
It was just a series of lines, wasn't it? It was very basic.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It was very basic. You could play certain games, it would load, and then you would play certain games. You had graphics capabilities, but they weren't advanced. And if you look
at pretty crude.
Yeah, pretty crude. And even Night Law is pretty crude, but it was isometric, and it was the first time I'd ever played an isometric RPG. An isometric anything, for that matter.
I haven't even got like a frame of reference of what that game is, I'll be honest.
I don't, but
you understand?
Just nod our heads, Rob.
Well, you understand why why I'd love to see that sort of game. And this is the thing, there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games from the age of the Commodore Amiga and the Atari ST and the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum. And even the early NES and Master System. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of games that would be, you could basically never run out of games that you could reboot if you just went back to that era.
Brought back Altered Beast, for God's sake.
Yeah, I know.
I loved that game as a kid.
It wasn't a bad game, particularly, but...
They brought back Splatterhouse. Why did they do that?
I know. There is actually one other game that I would love to see a reboot of. See, I don't know whether I want to see a reboot of it or whether I want to see a continuation because the original is such a classic and I absolutely love the original. No, I'm going to put that to one side. That's a game that I want to see a continuation of.
No, you can't just leave us hanging like that. What was it?
Klonoa.
Yeah. Need more Klonoa games.
Yeah, we need more. See, I knew you'd agree with me. Klonoa, I think we need more Klonoa games because they are just superb. So if I'm not going to choose Klonoa, I will go with another RPG from the PlayStation 1 that I really love. And I would love to see, I know they went all the way up to number 3, possibly even number 4, but I would love to see the original get a reboot because it is a fantastic story. The original Grandia.
I'll be honest, I might come across as a bit of a Philistine here, but there were so many classic level RPGs of that style on the PlayStation 1. That for me, they all kind of blend into each other and become one amorphous blob.
See, this is the thing with the Grandia games. I mean, with all those games, it was all about the story. It was less about the graphics. The style of graphics and gameplay was very similar from one to the next, but it was all about the story, and you played for the story, which, if you're playing an RPG of that style, you should be playing it for the story and not for the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why the Final Fantasy games did so well. People were playing it for the story. Grandia, for me, the original Grandia game, is a superb game. It's one of the best RPGs on the PlayStation. In fact, it's better than most of the Final Fantasy games.
The one that people are the people who aren't like Final Fantasy fans who pick a best one, it's usually Vagrant Story.
Vagrant Story was a bit overly complicated in parts, but it was still a good game. The reason I haven't gone with Skies of Arcadia or something like that is because there was an updated version of Skies of Arcadia on the GameCube. And with Skies of Arcadia, I would love to see a continuation rather than a reboot.
GameCube, what's that, like 2003, 2004 sort of time?
Yeah, but it's an updated version, but I would still love to see.
I know what we're saying. That's like 15 years since it was last out.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Shenmue got remastered for the PS4, and they've done a good job with the remastering. I would love to see. I mean, if Skies of Arcadia came out on modern consoles, I would buy it in a heartbeat because I adore that game.
Yeah.
If I can't have Grandia as a reboot, then absolutely give me Grandia 2 because it has one of the best protagonists in a JRPG ever. Ryudo is superb as a protagonist.
I'm going to have to find like a flowchart or something online so I understand which one of these games is which, because I don't know what they are. They're all the same thing to me. There's like Suikoden's in there as well. That was very popular.
Suikoden, yeah?
Yeah, there's so many. I'm not being ridiculous, am I, by getting confused between them all?
No, Suikoden is one of those ones where it's got its place. I'd love to see a new addition to the Suikoden games, because the old ones really still play well. I've got basically all the Suikoden games anyway, but Grandia 2 holds a special place in my heart. Grandia and Grandia 2, I should say, for being just so very, very different in terms of the story and in terms of their approach to JRPGs in general.
I'll be honest, I was kind of surprised you didn't plumb for that PlayStation 2 one that you're so fond of. I can't remember the bit where you play the character in the first and beat the bad guy, and you realise the bad guy in the first one was actually the good guy.
Shadow Hearts, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, the thing is, with Shadow Hearts, you'd have to go... See, people don't realise that the first Shadow Hearts game wasn't actually called Shadow Hearts. It was an obscure PlayStation 1 RPG horror game called Kudelka.
Dropping a knowledge bomb there.
Yeah. You don't actually realise it until you basically play through Shadow Hearts, and there's a section of Shadow Hearts where you are actually talking about the main character of the other game, whose name is Kudelka, and she is basically a medium, a spirit medium, and she is the mother of one of the characters in Shadow Hearts, one of the NPC characters in Shadow Hearts, if I remember rightly. And then Shadow Hearts 2, Shadow Hearts Covenant, was just the most amazing game. It's superb. I mean, the Shadow Hearts, the first Shadow Hearts game was great, but Shadow Hearts Covenant, it just turned everything around and basically made a mockery of everything you did in the first game.
So what we're saying, right, is just basically remake the golden era of JRPGs. Just do it all.
Just do them all. Do them all. All the way up to Grandia 2 and Skies of Arcadia and stuff like that. I'm fine with this. Some JRPGs, maybe from the PlayStation 2 era, I'd love to see a continuation of Dark Cloud and Dark Chronicle.
Oh yeah, me too.
I think that's a good note to end on, isn't it?
It is indeed. So thanks for listening to Press X. If you enjoy it, do subscribe, give us a star rating on your podcast provider of choice. But until next time, do check out some of the other stuff that we got over at thegeekshow.co.uk. And Press X will be back next time with I'll be trading in for Mark, I assume. But yeah, until then, I have been Rob.
I've been Andy.
And I've been Rob.
We'll see you later. Thanks for listening.